Greetings, class. Today we will discuss the interworkings of one of the most basic yet classic bodyweight exercises, the sit-up. In a sit-up, an individual lies on the floor with their knees bent and lifts their abdomen towards their thighs. The movement itself is very natural, as getting up from a laying down position utilizes the movements of a sit-up. Let me demonstrate a few sit-ups for you. The most important muscles for a sit-up are the rectus abdominis and the tensor fasciae latae, since they are the main muscles which adduct the abdomen towards the thigh. The rectus abdominis is important since it is the main muscle associated with the flexion of the lumbar vertebrae, which creates the sit-up movement. The rectus abdominis is located in the center of the abdomen and runs from the xiphoid process to the symphysis. An interesting fact about the rectus abdominis is that when someone is describing six-pack abs, they are discussing the visibility of the rectus abdominis. Flexion of the rectus abdominis simultaneously draws the ribs to the pelvis while curving the spine. The rectus abdominis also helps stabilize the spine. The flexion of the tensor fasciae latae usually raises the thigh, but in a sit-up, the muscles adduct the abdomen through drawing the top of the pelvis towards the femur. Through drawing the hips towards the femur, the tensor fasciae latae draws in the attached abdomen. The pelvis rotates around the hip joint when pulled by the tensor fasciae latae. The rectus abdominis and the tensor fasciae latae are greatly assisted by supporting muscles such as the rectus femoris, the iliopsoas, the external and internal obliques, the sartorius, and more. The most important bones for a sit-up are the rib cage and the pelvis. The pelvis serves as the main point of articulation for a majority of the flexions associated with the sit-up. Muscles such as the tensor fasciae latae use the pelvis as an anchor point and draws the pelvis towards the femur. The rib cage is also a major anchor point, but specifically for the abdominal muscles such as the rectus abdominis. The rib cage and the pelvis are also the main bones moved during a sit-up, as the rib cage and the pelvis are pulled closer together as the whole upper body is adducted. The hip joint and the facet joints of the spine are critical to the success of the sit-up. The hip joint is the center of the majority of the flexion of the quadricep and hip flexor muscles, which help draw in the abdomen, while the facet joints of the spine allow for the spine to curve as the muscles of the abdomen flex and shrink the abdominal region.
An exercise that can help you prepare for sit-ups could be planks. Like sit-ups, planks work your abdominal muscles and your glutes, but they do not have the risk of the side effect of lower back pain. Another exercise could be med ball crunches. Like regular sit-ups, med ball crunches work the same muscles, but the extra load from the weight of the med ball could prepare you to do more sit-ups. One potential injury that sit-ups could lead to could be lower back pain. And this happens because of the high levels of compression on the spine. And then over time, this movement can lead to a bulging or herniated disc, which will lead to the pain. Another injury could be a pinched nerve in the neck, which happens when there's too much strain placed on the neck, when people interlace their fingers behind their neck to help them in the sit-up instead of engaging the abdominal muscles. One thing I learned from completing this project was that many exercises engaged more parts of the body than they're commonly known to. For example, the sit-up is typically known to work your ab muscles, but I was surprised to learn that it also engaged your ankles as well. Another thing we learned from this project was that sit-ups were probably not the best abdominal exercise to do, and this is mostly because of the risk of the lower back pain caused by the frequent compression of the spine. And this tells us that we should probably try another exercise that's a little better on the back, like planks. We also learned that all everyday activities involving muscular systems include an agonist, antagonist, and a synergist. And for example, in our activity sit-ups, the synergist was the iliopsoas, an antagonist was the gluteus maximus, and an example of an agonist in this activity was the rectus abdominis.